All right, so I just recently did a build with this, and actually this is sold and it's pretty much gone, and I should probably have it out of here by tomorrow, maybe, ideally, hopefully. I don't know, but it's pretty much sold for the most part. And before I send it out, I just wanted to give you guys a review, my review, build suggestions, and my thought on this case. So let's get to talking. So this is the iBuyPower Snowblind S case. Comes with a 19-inch translucent customizable side panel LCD display, resolution being 1280 by 1024, and it's a mid desktop gaming computer. So now the first thing I want to say is this LCD thing over here, yeah, it's more of a commodity, more of a upsell, definitely not worth it. So now this thing supports ATX, Micro ATX, ITX, and all that good stuff. Two fans on the side right over here, along with one 120 over here. And that's kind of pretty much it. The top, you get your USB, audio in, microphone, your little LED for your hard disk drive or solid state drive or NVMe, depending on not, and your power button. I would say you have RGB over here, but you don't. It's just a white LED, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. And as far as your ventilation, well, this is it. This is all you get. Yeah. Come to the back, and this is pretty much what you got, which is, I mean, typical, nothing fancy over here. And you have your button over here, which actually turns on your white LED. So if you want to have this all lit up, turn this on. Well, as far as the front being. So let me go ahead, let me open up these side panels and show you what this thing's about. So we open it up, and this is what you're greeted with. You have your two 120s, which the ones that come with it are pretty much junk in my opinion. So I went ahead and just upgraded to these GIM ones because they're cheaper and they are a lot better. You have your basement over here, and you have this and this, which this is what powers and sends the signal to your LCD screen right over here, which it's okay. But if you look, you get this wire that's kind of tacky and messes up your clean aesthetic. And that's just the only way that you can get your HDMI signal. Now, personally, if I would have designed this case, I probably would have drilled it or even dremeled it or even done it through here to kind of keep this wire clean and more up against this instead of just hanging out over here, but that's what you deal with. So let's get back to the front over here. The front over here, you have this right over here, and you would think that it has RGB, but it's the Snowblind. So it kind of works with the whole white LED setup for it. And pretty much when you plug in this panel and this right over here, you hit this button over here, which is in the back, and that's what lights up your LEDs, turns them on, and makes this all white. That's all you get is white. So if you're gonna buy this case, you're pretty much stuck with white. Now, what I have seen people do is they want to go ahead and put a LED strip right over here, or at least in the back, try to squeeze it to kind of give you more color options if you're big into that whole rainbow puke. So yeah, that's an option. Don't mind my cable management, as well, I do the best I can. I ain't no expert on it, but I do enough to make it at least pretty in the front. So as far as the back over here, one thing I do like about this case, and I will say, is that there's plenty of provisions for mounting for your cables. I mean, you could just mount them across nice and clean, and it helps to kind of keep the cables from going across your openings right over here, which I do like that. Your power supply basement is pretty good. You could put two 3.5 drives. We have our 1 terabyte hard disk drive over here, and we could put a second one over here. And the cool thing I like about it, I will say, is that if you have to, just kind of like I did, shove the cables in and just lay them up across the top. So you do have that room for that. Now, the power supply basement gives you plenty of room to put longer power supplies if needed be, but that's kind of all you get. Your mounting, you get mountings for your 2.5, your SSD if you want to put one over here. In this case, I put my SSD right over here, and I went ahead and mounted the control center for my GIM fans. Now, what kind of hurts this case, in my opinion, is number one, the lack of airflow. So if you look at the side panel over here and you see, I mean, yes, it's pretty somewhat see-through-ish and everything, but this is a lot of restriction, and there's really not a lot of room to suck in airflow. So the way you got to have your fans is kind of suck in the airflow from over here. But I will tell you, once you put this on, the amount of airflow that you get from the front is very limited, and it just hurts it a lot. Not to mention that your fans are blowing air right over here, and this is your only way to kind of expel that hot air that you have over here. So just something to kind of consider. So for your airflow in the back, they actually have a screen, which I've tossed it somewhere and I don't know where I put it, but I went ahead and I took the screen off. It was a mesh that kind of went over here. It kind of clipped in, and what it did was it allows, when it sucks in air, to kind of filter the dust. Okay, that's good. But the issue that you run into is that because this is very limited in bringing in airflow, you add another restriction. Now you have like really little to none airflow going in there. And yeah, if you want to do a quick, cheap, easy upgrade, I was able to gain a couple of degrees just by deleting that. Yes, you're going to have to deal with cleaning your computer a little more frequently and dusting it out. But guys, I mean, you got to do what you can if you're going to have this case. So now on the bottom, you have your dust screen right over here, which slides in, slides out, pretty decent. But this is something that I want to point out to you. Now, if you have a 3.5-inch drive for your storage, your media, your games, or whatever you want to do, and you either want to upgrade it or add another one, the way you got to do it is take this off, which is no big deal, but you need to flip your computer on its side right over here. And as you can see, you have your 4 screws right over here to mount in your 3.5 drive. It is a little tricky, meaning that you have to hold it right over here, kind of line up your screws, make sure you have a magnetic screwdriver, and put it in. I'm not a fan of it. Usually I like the caddies to slide in and out, but that's the way they did it. So definitely something that you need to consider. Now, outside the airflow and the weird mounting for the hard drive, there is plenty of room to build in here, and you have plenty of room to add in a full-size graphics card. Now, kind of keep in mind, if your graphics card kind of extends past here, you might hit into the fan, so just be mindful of it. Let me get a measuring tape and show you guys the distance. So, looking at it, we're at, let's just make it math easy, 10.5 inches just for our GTX 980. So now if you wanted to add like a 3080 for the Win 3, because that's a pretty beefy card from EVGA, those cards are around 12 inches, and I'll do the conversion to millimeters for those. And as you see, our 12 inches is right by the fan, so you might be bumping up the fan. And I can tell you this right now, the fan that I'm using right over here does stick out a little bit. So if I was to put a 3080 for the Win 3, it's gonna bump up right against here if not sitting straight out. So you might need to consider your fan height when putting it in. Just food for thought on that. So now you want to put an AIO in, either a 120 or a 240. Something to keep in mind. If you're gonna put a 120 in, you can't put it over here. And here's why. If you look, there's actually a little switch right up over here, and that's the switch that controls the white LED. So if you're gonna put a 120, and I tried already with this case, it's gonna hit the switch, and your only other option is to put the fan first and then put the 120 over here and just have it as a pull configuration, which it's not ideal in my opinion for the airflow and definitely not for the aesthetic. Now you can mount a 240 AIO right over here, and you will have the clearance for that. But then again, like the issue I talked about earlier, this is very restrictive in airflow, and in my opinion, you're going to starve your AIO of fresh air. It's really going to struggle to kind of bring in that fresh air, and if you don't remove the mesh, that's going to make it worse. So your best bet is probably just to get a good air cooler. This one works. It gets the job done great for the 6700K, but you can actually go in because you have plenty of room to put a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. I believe you have the clearance on the side over here. I'll put a note in case we don't, but you're gonna need to have a good air cooler. Definitely not the stock one that comes in with this. So let's go ahead, let's plug this thing on the bench, and let me show you how this lighting and RGB goodness and LCD panel looks. All right, let's fire up. There we go. And as you can see, the fans from GIM, they look great. Look pretty awesome on it. And yeah, you'll see when we put the panel on. The front, we get the illumination from those GIM fans, so that kind of helps with it a lot. And then the cool thing is on the side over here, it just kind of bleeds through really nice. So yeah, if you have some good white fans, it's actually going to have a nice clean aesthetic to it. So now to mount the panel in over here, if you look, it goes right into the feet right there and right over there. So let me go ahead and kind of show you how that mounts in. So now if you just decide to use this without plugging this in to your video card, this is what you're gonna get. It's very reflective, it's very dark, and you can't see the RGB that's inside. It's just very reflective. So now you can see the kind of white light there on the bottom, and you turn that off. and it's gone. But the white light is what illuminates the front and just gives it a cleaner, crisper look, in my opinion. So in the back, I have my HDMI cable plugged in, but on this card, I have 3 display ports and only 1 HDMI. So gonna have to get an adapter. These are about $10 on Amazon, and we can kind of plug it in here just so we can use the display port to power this up. All right, and now that that's plugged in, you could kind of see the screen. Let's go ahead and see if I can move this. And you can kind of see the screen on the bottom. There's your Windows icon and all that good jazz. And so then there's some software and some screensaver stuff that you can kind of put in there to make it more decorative and pretty and just whatever you like. But honestly, it's, like I said, more of a commodity than actually being practical. Also, another thing to keep in mind is, let's say you just don't want to plug this in. So then this is what your screen looks like. It's dark, reflective, and that's just about it. So just something that you need to consider if you're going to use this case. So now to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like, I mean, this is your, I guess, ideal situation that you would be in your gaming layer where it's dark and everything. And that's pretty much what you're going to see. And yeah, you could put your little screensaver like I talked about and all that good stuff on there. But I mean, that's pretty much it. What do you gain for it? Now, the question is, can we actually use this? So I went ahead and I just opened up the internet over here, and yeah, we're using MSN, but that's fine. Let's load up a YouTube and let's see if we could put a background on here that doesn't look so terrible. I mean, as far as using it, it's not terrible. I mean, you can see it. Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Logfire. Those are always nice, right? So, I mean, I can see it. It is kind of cool. It's nice. And, you know, you have that right over here. So let's go ahead and turn on the main monitor. And you have your screen over here, and you have this in the back. So I mean, it is cool. I gotta give it that. It is kind of cool, but what you give up for it is definitely not worth it, in my opinion. So let me go ahead, turn the lights back on, and give you my final thoughts. So my final thoughts. Number one, this commodity is kind of cool-ish. I will say that. But as far as practicality and what you give up, you sacrifice airflow, you sacrifice your nice RGB aesthetic look just to kind of keep it this one color over here. I mean, yeah, you could put some pictures and some scenery and all that good stuff, but I personally like the customization option of being able to do whatever I want with my RGB. Well, I'm not an RGB fan on that. Now the price. When this thing came out, iBuyPower was selling it in 2019 for $249. And if you were to get it from third-party stores, you were paying upwards of $300 just for this. That's right, just for that. Now, looking on the old eBay, this is quite hard to find this case, as I could not hunt it down, and I was able to find some third-party websites and they were selling it for about $200. So you're paying $200 if you wanted this now for that. If I'm going to pay $200, I want some good airflow. I want to be able to do some custom water cooling. I want to be able to do a lot more with it. So guys, as far as my review and my final thoughts on this, I definitely got to give it a thumbs down, because it's just not worth it. Now, maybe 50, 60 bucks, it might be cool to have as a decor piece, but as far as paying $200 for this, yeah, definitely not worth it. So guys, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about this case? Would you buy it? Do you have it? And do you really think it's worth anything? If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.